It started slow, you know, the whole process was very slow because I was starting to do TV movies first with Lucille Ball and Art Carney, Happy Anniversary and Goodbye. And then I was doing Streets of San Francisco, then I was doing Stay Hungry with Sally Fields and Jeff Bridges. And so as I was doing these movies, I think Conan the Barbarian was the big breakthrough, because Conan the Barbarian was a studio movie that was done by Universal Studio, and it was like a international phenomenon. I mean, it was #1 box office when it came out, and people were shocked. People were shocked. They said, well, who are these people? But what is Conan? And but the fans were just so fanatic. They went the first weekend 3-4 times to see the same movie, to see Conan the Barbarian. They loved it so much, and so we had the longest lines in front of the theater, and people and the press and everyone was shocked. So anyway, I think that really launched my real, you know, my movie career as a leading man. And so from then on, it was of course Terminator and Commando and Running Man and Predator and all of those movies, so one after the next. So, you know, so it was very clear that I was going in the right direction, and we created an era, the action era in the 80s. You know, then Stallone was doing a lot of the action movies, and great action movies. And then Chuck Norris came in and did the action movies, and Van Damme came in and did action movies. So there was so many of the guys that were playing these action stars, and every weekend you saw another movie coming out. You know? So it was really, really terrific. And now people are trying to bring that era back. And so that's why they're coming to me and saying, can you do another Commando? Can you do another Predator? Can you do another Conan? And so on. So I think it's really great when you're like, you know, almost 79 years old, and then you demand for doing more movies.
Well, especially since at the start they were like, no, Schwarzenegger, that won't work, and this accent, we have to sort that out. How did you convince them that your surname and that your accent wouldn't hinder your success?
Well, look, I know that from bodybuilding, if imagine that here was this 15-year-old kid and they said, I want to go to America and I want to be a bodybuilding champion. Yeah, of course, everyone in Austria, especially my parents, thought that I was mentally ill. You know, my mother, when she saw me having pictures hung up on the wall above my bed, you know, of all of those muscle men and boxers and all the stuff that, all the people that I admired, you know, I wanted to look up there and get motivated. So she had the doctor, our house doctor. You know, in the old days, you had house doctors that came to your house. She had the house doctor come to our house, and she told him about what she's concerned about. I said, look at this. I mean, my son has above his bed a naked man hanging there. All his friends have, you know, girls hanging above the bed, if they have anything hanging above the, but here's naked man, they're all just men. And the doctor luckily was smart enough to say, no, he's at the age now where the testosterone is kicking in, it's becoming a man, and this is his man that he idolizes and all that stuff. And I mean, she was so relieved. I mean, she was crying to the doctor saying, oh my God, what happened to my son? Oh God, I thought that he's going to go this way now. You know, all these concerns that she had. So imagine, I grew up with that. Everyone was like kind of suspicious about what is bodybuilding? This is really weird. So everyone says, no, this is not good. Do an Austrian sport, do skiing, do running, or play tennis, or play golf. You know, and I had no interest in that. My interest was in just lifting, because everyone told me in the gym when I started working out, you have a lot of potential. Look at this, look at your muscles grow, look at your chest, look at your back. So it was the first time I really was getting compliments, you know, at that age, at age 15. I never got compliments at home, you know, everything was always wrong that I did. So I was like, really, I became part of that community. And so I heard the no's, the no, and it can't be done all the time. And so when you read my book, be useful, you will see one of the chapters in there is about don't listen to the naysayers. Because you can never become successful if you listen to the naysayers. And so, of course, you have to imagine now this bodybuilder that is winning now Mr. Olympia one after the next, and Mr. Universe, and I become the greatest bodybuilder of all times. And then all of a sudden I go and say to the studio executive, I want to get into acting. Well, studio executives and agents said immediatly, they said, look, it's not going to work. You can never be a leading man because you have an accent. And plus, look at your body weight. You're too huge. Hercules movies are out. They don't do Hercules movies anymore. This is the 70s. You know, there's people like, you know, Woody Allen. He's a sex symbol now in the 70s. Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino. They all weigh 140 pounds. You weigh 250, you're too big. So this is the way it was. No, 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 it can't be done. You're in the wrong direction. We help you with a health food store, opening up a health food store. Or we can help you with opening up a gym. But I had no interest to open up a gym. I want to be a movie star. So those are two different things. So, I mean, I didn't listen to the naysayers. I just basically said to myself, okay, to win Mr. Olympia, it took me 5 hours a day. And I'm going to go now and put in 5 hours a day to train for my acting career. I took acting lessons and stunt lessons and English lessons and speech lessons and all of this stuff, including, you would laugh, accent removal lessons. I should have fired that person in no time. But the bottom line was, you know, the Germans, you know, have certain problems with this, how to pronounce words, you know, like 3,333. So my accent coach said, no, you have to have said TH. 3,333 and 1/3. And so you know, so that's so anyway, so you work on those things. And I remember that it was also in German, was the difficulty with the F and the V and the W's. So that the coach had me say, a fine wine grows on a vine. So there's the F and the W and the V. And so, so I said those things like 1,000 times a day. And the sink is made out of zinc. He said, one is the zinc with an S, and one is a vibrating S. Zinc, zinc. And then there's a Z. So, okay. I mean, I didn't quite understand it in the beginning, but eventually you get with the program and you do all that stuff, because English it's kind of a weird thing, you know, like I'm doing this scene, this action scene, and I'm saying, I'm going to kill you with this knife. And the director comes to me and says, what the fuck did you say? Knife? He says, we're always doing your speech classes. He says, there's no knife. It's a knife. This is a knife. So he says, you don't understand it. You don't pronounce the K. I said, okay. All right, let's do it again. Action, Arnold. I'm going to go and kill you with this knife. She said, cut. This is, it's kill you with the knife. I said, you said I shouldn't say the K. So this is how it goes, right? I mean, it's like total chaos. And so this is the kind of stuff that I went through in the beginning. It's to really get with the program. But I mean, I did it. And then, like I said, Lucille Ball called me one day and she asked me to be in her show. And then from that point on, bang, I started getting jobs, little jobs, bigger jobs, and bigger jobs, eventually to Conan. So I didn't listen to the naysayers.
Very good. I feel like the Ilmi with the knife would have been a great catchphrase. And you have, I mean, how many one-liners? You all have favorite one-liners, I'm sure. Which of your one-liners is your favorite?
You know, I don't have a favorite. It's just, I have to say that none of them were planned to be famous
really?
one-liners. No, I'll Be Back was just, we were arguing on the set about I'll Be Back because Jim Norman said, Jim Cameron said that I should say I'll be back. And I said, well, why don't I just say I will be back? As more like machine-like. And he says, no, just say I'll be back. I shoot it 10 different ways if you want, but then we just say I'll be back. And so we did that. And then someone after the movie came up to me and said, can you say this line that you said in the movie, I'll be back? And I said, I'll be back. And this guy looked at me kind of like I was nuts. No. I want you to say it the way you said it in the movie. And they said, oh, okay, I'll be back. And so the guy said, yeah, that's the one. Oh my God. And he ran off to another one of his friends. He says, he said the line exactly like in the movie. So this way I realized, wait a minute, what was so special about this line? And then other people came up to me, and then, I mean, the rest is history. It became the most used and most famous movie line of all times.
How many?
And so then other lines came about, but there was more like the way I pronounced it rather than just the line. It's like when I was in Commander, I was sticking a guy in Predator, I was sticking a guy with a knife in the chest, with a knife in the chest, and they said, stick around. So that became a line then. And then, and Predator and they said, get to the chopper!
We all wanted to hear that.
That became the line, and then, hasta la vista, baby. So that became a line. So it was like, put the cookie down, So all of those kind of things, but it's the way I pronounce it. It's not a tumor. In the movie I said tumor with a D. It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all. And so the kids laughed. And then the director said, I'm going to keep that in because it makes everyone laugh. It makes the kids laugh, so maybe the people laugh too, and they did. So it's just the way I pronounce things sometimes. It's what makes it then kind of like a usable line and how people then use it. Now I ride around with the bicycle in Santa Monica when I go to the gym and to work out, and the people scream from across the street, get to the chopper, or someone says, hasta la vista, baby, I'll be back. So I hear all these movie lines as I'm riding around with the bike. So I never ever thought that it would happen. So, you never know. But I'm happy that those lines became that famous, the movies became that famous, and those movies were really very, very successful movies.
They were, and one of the films which actually, if you saw the list of movies that you've made and you knew how successful they all were, you might not have expected Twins to be up there as one of the most lucrative. It's brilliant, but you'd have thought that Terminator would have been more lucrative than Twins.
Well, the interesting thing is that whenever they ask on a quiz show people about, what was Schwarzenegger's first movie that made over $100 million domestically, an action movie or a comedy? Everyone says it was an action movie. But the fact was it was a comedy. It was Twins. Twins was the first movie that made over $100 million, it made $128 million in America, and then they made overseas also around $130 million. And it was like the most successful movie then, and they didn't want to pay me for Twins because they said, we're taking a risk. We want to continue doing action movies with you, but I mean, how do we know that this movie is going to be successful? I said, don't pay me. It's perfectly fine with me. I said, let's just make it simple. We all take a risk. I said, you don't pay me, I do the movie, and they own 1/3 of the movie. They said, okay, that's a good deal.
Oh, for you.
And the movie made, I have to tell you, but the movie made like, I'd say, $250+ million worldwide.
Wow.
So, I mean, I like that ownership, right? So, it's all about having,